passport torn in half. A young black woman in a hoodie humiliated at a cruise terminal checkpoint. The security officer smirked as he destroyed her only way to travel, telling her, "You're not sailing anywhere." But he made one catastrophic mistake. That woman wasn't a student. She was Maya Jordan, the 29-year-old CEO of the entire cruise line he was standing in. What happened next? The officer was arrested by the FBI. His career? Obliterated. His freedom? Gone. 18 months in federal prison. This is the story of how one act of racist rage triggered a nationwide revolution in port security. Watch until the end to hear the audio recording that sent a bully to prison and changed an entire industry. What city are you watching this video from and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. What happens when a person with a little bit of power tries to destroy the life of someone they know nothing about? A bitter and prejudiced cruise terminal security officer sees a young black woman in a hoodie and decides to make an example of her. He rips her passport, stranding her, humiliating her, and telling her she's going nowhere. What he didn't know was that he wasn't talking to a student. He was talking to Maya Jordan, the brand new CEO of the very cruise line he was standing in. The karma that comes for him isn't just swift. It's catastrophic. This is the story of how one woman's humiliation turned into an entire industry's reckoning. Port Everglades was a cathedral of human anxiety. The colossal glass walls of Terminal C gleamed with the weak morning light, but inside, the atmosphere was thick with the smells of stale coffee, diesel fumes, and the faint coppery scent of stress. Thousands of people, a flowing river of baggage and bodies, snaked through the embarkation security lines, a place where status evaporated, and everyone was reduced to their socks and their carry-ons. Maya Jordan kept her head down, hood up, earbuds firmly in place though no music was playing. She was listening to the weary parents shushing their children, the impatient tapping of a businessman's Italian loafers, the curt, barked orders of the cruise terminal security. At 29, Maya was an anomaly. She was the newly minted and very secret CEO of Horizon Cruise Lines, the primary carrier out of this terminal. She had gotten the job not through nepotism, but through a brutal, brilliant career in logistics and tech. She had redesigned the entire freight system for a global shipping giant, then revolutionized a tech company's supply chain. The Horizon board, desperate for a 21st century mind, had hired her to save their sinking, old guard cruise line. Today was her first unofficial day. She wasn't traveling in the luxurious penthouse suite the company had offered. She was traveling in a standard interior stateroom, on Deck 4, for a 7-day cruise to the Caribbean. She was wearing gray sweats, a nondescript black hoodie, and a pair of worn-out sneakers. Her Toomey backpack, the only hint of her income, looked like a student's carry-all. She wanted to see the cruise line from the bottom up. She wanted to know what the average passenger endured. She had no idea she was about to get exactly what she wished for. The line shuffled forward. Next. Next. The voice cut through the din. It belonged to Officer Paul O'Brien. He was a man in his late 40s who looked like his uniform had been shrink-wrapped around a sack of discontent. His face was a permanent ruddy scowl, and his eyes, small and dark, scanned the crowd, not for threats, but for targets. He'd been with port security for 15 years, a career ceiling he'd hit a decade ago. Every day was a new opportunity to exert the only power he had in the world. Maya watched him for a moment. He snapped at an elderly couple who didn't understand his instructions about their medication. "Liquids in the bag, sir. How many times you want to sail today? Are you sailing or not?" Maya felt a familiar tightening in her stomach. It was the old, ugly feeling of anticipating a confrontation she didn't want. She stepped forward, placing her backpack and shoes in a gray bin. She walked through the body scanner, hands up, and waited. "You," O'Brien barked, not at her, but in her general direction. "Over here, secondary," Maya sighed internally. Of course, it was always random. She stepped to the side, maintaining a neutral expression. O'Brien didn't move toward her. He gestured with his chin to a sterile, linoleum-floored area. "Wait there. Don't touch your phone," she waited. 5 minutes passed. Her ship began boarding in 30. O'Brien and a younger, nervous-looking female officer chatted by the X-ray machine, ignoring her. He was laughing about something, deliberately letting her stew. This, she knew, was part of the performance. The power lay in the waiting. Finally, he ambled over, snapping his latex gloves with unnecessary force. "All right, let's see it. Passport." Maya unlocked her backpack, which he gestured for, and handed him her official blue passport. He snatched it. He opened it and stared at the photo. The woman in the photo was Maya Jordan, CEO. She wore a sharp navy blue blazer. Her natural hair was styled professionally, and her expression was one of confident, calm authority. He looked from the photo to the young woman in the hoodie. He looked at her face, her hair pulled back into a simple bun, her dark skin. He sneered. The disconnect was, in his mind, proof of a lie. "This you?" he asked, his voice dripping with disbelief. "Yes, it is," Maya said, her voice even and low. "Doesn't look like you," O'Brien said, flipping the passport dismissively. "Where are you headed?" "The Caribbean. Business or pleasure?" The question was standard, but his tone was accusatory. "Business." He laughed. A short, ugly bark. "Business in that?" He gestured to her sweatsuit. Maya's patience, usually a deep, unshakable well, began to thin. "My attire is not your concern, officer. Is there a problem with my documentation?" O'Brien's eyes narrowed. He hated attitude. He hated it when these people, who he felt were beneath him, talked back like they were lawyers. "There might be," he said, angling the passport under the harsh fluorescent light. "This passport looks off." "It was issued by the State Department 3 months ago," Maya said, her voice turning cold. "It's perfectly valid." "That's what they all say," O'Brien muttered. He ran his thumb over the edge of the laminated page, bending it back and forth. "This laminate's peeling. Common sign of a counterfeit." Maya knew for a fact it was not peeling. He was making it peel. "Officer, you are damaging my passport," she stated. It was not a request. It was a statement of fact. "I'm inspecting it," he retorted, his voice rising. The younger female officer looked over, worried. "You people come in here with these fake IDs, thinking you can just waltz through. Where'd you really get this?" "I am an American citizen. That is my legal identification. Please hand it back to me." This was his moment. This was the precipice of his power. He saw her composure not as dignity, but as arrogance. He saw her youth and her race and her hoodie, and in his mind she was a criminal. He had to teach her a lesson. He had to put her back in her place. "You know," he said, leaning in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, menacing whisper. "Destroying or altering a federal document is a serious offense, ma'am. We could detain you for this." "You mean you could be detained for destroying it?" Maya shot back, her fury finally breaking through. "I know my rights. Get your supervisor." That was the trigger. The word supervisor. It was a challenge to his microscopic throne. "Oh, you want to see a supervisor?" O'Brien snarled. "Fine." And with a sickening, deliberate motion, Paul O'Brien hooked his thumb under the corner of her passport's data page and ripped it. The sound was quiet, but in the sterile silence of the secondary screening area, it was as loud as a gunshot. A clean 2-inch tear right through her photograph and the machine-readable code. The world stopped. The younger officer gasped and took a step back. O'Brien tossed the ruined document onto the metal table between them. The two halves of her face stared up at the ceiling. "Looks like it was fake after all," he said, a triumphant, ugly smirk spreading across his face. "It's damaged. You're not sailing anywhere today, or anytime soon. Get her out of my terminal." Maya Jordan stared at the two pieces of her identity. She looked up at Paul O'Brien. She said nothing. The absolute Arctic cold silence that emanated from her was more terrifying than any scream. He had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He just had no idea what it was going to cost him. The humiliation was immediate and public. "Ma'am, you need to leave the secure area," said the young officer, whose name tag read Ramirez, her voice trembling. She was clearly horrified, but more scared of O'Brien than of the passenger. "He destroyed my property," Maya said, her voice dangerously quiet. She didn't look at Ramirez. Her eyes were locked on O'Brien, who was already turning away, wiping his hands on his trousers, as if he'd just handled something filthy. "Officer O'Brien," Maya's voice rang out, sharp as a diamond cutter. It stopped him cold. It stopped the passengers shuffling by. "What is your badge number?" O'Brien turned back, his face crimson with rage. He had won. Why was she still talking? "You're done here. I told you the document is void." Now exit the checkpoint, or I'll have Port Authority police arrest you for trespassing. I'm asking for your badge number, Maya repeated. Get her out, O'Brien yelled at Ramirez. A Port Authority officer, drawn by the shouting, began to approach. Maya knew she had lost this battle. For now. To be arrested here would complicate things, draw media, and expose her identity before she was ready. She had to retreat to win the war. She carefully, deliberately picked up the 2 pieces of her ruined passport. She met O'Brien's gaze. He was still smirking. You will regret this, she whispered. It wasn't a threat. It was a prophecy. Yeah. Tell it to your lawyer, he scoffed. Maya turned and walked with all the dignity she could muster, back out of the security line against the flow of oncoming passengers. She endured the stares, the whispers, the judgment. They saw a young black woman in sweats being ejected from security. They filled in the blanks themselves. Troublemaker, criminal, druggie. She emerged back into the chaotic, non-secure side of Terminal C. The Grand Hall, which had seemed so full of promise minutes before, now felt like a prison. She was stranded. Her ship was leaving. Her luggage, which she had given to a porter, was on its way to the Caribbean without her. She found a quiet corner near a shuttered kiosk, sank onto a hard plastic bench, and let the first wave of pure, unadulterated fury wash over her. It wasn't just the inconvenience. It was the violation, the deliberate, spiteful abuse of power, the smug look on his face as he tore her identity in 2. He hadn't just ripped her passport. He had in his mind ripped her apart. He had tried to tell her she was nothing, that she had no right to travel, no right to exist in his space. The fury lasted for 60 seconds. Then it solidified. It chilled, compressed, and hardened into something else. Resolve. Maya Jordan had not become the youngest CEO of a Fortune 500 cruise line by being emotional. She had done it by being strategic. She pulled out her personal cell phone, not the company-issued one. She speed-dialed a number. It rang once. Ben. Her chief of staff, Ben Carter, was in a black car heading to Newark, expecting to pick her up in 5 hours. Maya, is everything okay? You shouldn't be calling me. You should be... I'm still at Port Everglades, Maya said, her voice flat. What? Did you miss the ship? I can rebook you. There's a sailing at 10 a.m. I can get you upgraded. I'm not in the terminal, Ben. I'm landside. A terminal security officer just ripped my passport in half. There was a dead, stunned silence on the other end of the line. What? Terminal C, Bravo checkpoint, Officer Paul O'Brien. He confiscated my passport, accused me of it being a counterfeit, and when I asked for a supervisor, he deliberately tore the data page in 2. He then had me escorted from the checkpoint. Ben's panic was audible. My God, are you okay? Were you arrested? No, I'm fine. But I'm angry, and I'm not going to the Caribbean. What do you need? I'll call the Port Authority. I'll call the port director. I'll get the lawyers. You will do all of those things, Maya interrupted, her voice gaining the sharp executive edge she had been suppressing all morning. But first, I want you to call the Horizon Cruise Line's port operations manager here at Port Everglades. His name is... She quickly pulled up the executive roster on her phone. David Miller. Tell him the new CEO is in the food court by Checkpoint Bravo and requires an immediate escort to the Horizon corporate offices in this terminal. Right, Miller. Got it. Second, I want you to get the Horizon legal team on a conference call. I want the general counsel, not some junior associate. I also want you to contact the Port Everglades Port Director's office. Her name is Laura Evans. Inform Director Evans that the CEO of her largest cruise line partner was just assaulted by one of her officers and that I expect to meet with her in person in the next 90 minutes. 90 minutes? Maya, that's aggressive even for you. He ripped my passport, Ben. 90 minutes. Third, call the head of Port Authority Police at this terminal. Tell them, I want all CCTV footage from Checkpoint Bravo, specifically Station 12, from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. today. I want it preserved. I don't want it accidentally erased. Got it. Miller, Evans, Legal, and Port Authority for the tapes. What are you going to do? Maya looked at the 2 pieces of her passport in her lap. Officer O'Brien told me I wasn't going anywhere. He's wrong. I'm going to war. She hung up. She closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself. The hoodie and sweats were now a liability. The disguise was over. She stood up, walked into a public restroom, and changed. She had packed a simple black cashmere travel dress and a pair of Rothy's flats in her backpack. She pulled her hair from its bun, letting it fall in its professional-styled coils. She washed her face, put on a pair of simple pearl earrings, and applied a slash of bold red lipstick. When she walked out of the restroom, she was no longer a college student. She was the CEO. She sat back down at the same bench, pulled out her laptop, and began to type. She wasn't just waiting. She was pulling Paul O'Brien's entire file. Horizon Cruise Line's Port Everglades Port Operations Manager, David Miller, was having a terrible morning. A provisioning truck had dented the hull of a ship. The baggage system had malfunctioned, and now he had 3 sailings delayed until noon. He was a man who believed in the pecking order. He was at the top of the port's operational pecking order, and he liked it that way. His desk phone rang, a direct line from corporate. He snatched it up. Miller. Mr. Miller. This is Ben Carter, Chief of Staff to the CEO. Miller's posture straightened. He'd never spoken to Carter. He didn't even know the new CEO's name yet, just that she was some tech prodigy from the West Coast. Mr. Carter, what can I do for corporate? You have a passenger in your terminal, in the food court near Checkpoint Bravo, named Maya Jordan. She is your new CEO. She has been detained by terminal security, and she requires an immediate escort to your executive offices. You need to go now. Miller almost dropped the phone. Detained? The CEO? But I thought she was arriving on the corporate ship next week. Plans changed. Go now, David. Find her. The line clicked dead. Miller's heart hammered. The CEO was here, and she was detained. This was a disaster. He grabbed his suit jacket, barked at his assistant to cover the desk, and practically ran out of the office, his mind racing. What could she have done? Was she drunk, belligerent? He pictured a middle-aged, sharp-suited woman. He'd pictured a white woman being hassled. He burst into the food court, scanning the crowd. He saw college kids, families, ship officers. No one looked like a CEO. He was about to call Carter back when he saw her. She was sitting alone on a bench, laptop open, typing with furious speed. She was young, very young, and black. She wore a simple black dress and looked more like a high-level marketing associate than the head of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He hesitated. This couldn't be her. He approached cautiously. Excuse me, ma'am. Maya looked up from her laptop. Her eyes were sharp and held zero warmth. Mr. Miller, you're late. His blood ran cold. It was her. Ms. Jordan, I apologize. I came as soon as I heard. I am David Miller. Please come with me. We'll get you to the executive lounge. I'll get you a drink. We'll get you rebooked on the next sailing. Whatever you need. I am so sorry for this. This mix-up. He reached for her backpack. Maya closed her laptop and slung the backpack onto her own shoulder, standing up in one fluid motion. I don't want a lounge, Mr. Miller. I don't want a drink. I want your largest conference room. And I want you to explain to me why your passengers are being assaulted by port staff in your primary hub. Miller blanched. Assaulted? Ma'am, I'm sure security was just... They weren't just anything, Maya said, walking past him so quickly he had to jog to keep up. An officer, Paul O'Brien, destroyed my passport, deliberately. Miller was speechless. They moved through a staff-only door, the manager swiping his badge, and suddenly, they were in the quiet, carpeted corridors behind the chaos of the terminal. Take me to the office, David, and get me the best-performing, most professional embarkation agent you have on duty right now. And a new phone. I need a secure, company-issued line. Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am. The obsequious fawning had begun. It was, in Maya's opinion, just as offensive as O'Brien's aggression. Meanwhile, in another part of the port, Port Everglades Port Director Laura Evans slammed down her phone. Are you kidding me? She roared to her deputy. Carter, the COS for Horizon. He said it on a recorded line. Agent ripped up her passport. The CEO's passport. Evans, a political appointee who navigated the bureaucracy of Washington with practiced ease, knew this was a code red situation. This wasn't some random tourist who could be silenced with a voucher and an apology form. This was the head of the cruise line that paid millions in docking fees to this port. This was a woman who had the personal cell numbers of senators. Get me Perez, the supervisor from Checkpoint Bravo, now, and find Paul O'Brien. Find him, get his badge, and put him in a holding room. Don't let him talk to anyone. And get the head of Port Authority Police over here. We have a containment situation." Evans grabbed her blazer. She had to walk into the lion's den. She had to go see Ms. Jordan. This was going to be the worst day of her career. Back at Checkpoint Bravo, Officer Ramirez was pale and typing a report when Supervisor Perez ran up. "Where's O'Brien? He went on his break, ma'am. To the cafeteria. Go get him. Now. Tell him Port Director Evans wants to see him. And you," she pointed to Ramirez, "you're coming with me. You were a witness. You better tell me exactly what happened." Officer O'Brien was in the staff cafeteria, happily munching on a donut, bragging to two of his colleagues. "So I just tore it," he was saying, laughing, right in her stupid, arrogant face. "You should have seen her." "You'll regret this," he mimicked in a high-pitched, mocking voice. "Yeah, okay. Regret what? Doing my job, Paul?" "Man, you can't do that," said one of his colleagues, a veteran officer named Sullivan, shaking his head. "Watch me," O'Brien said, taking another bite. "It was a fake. She was probably a mule. I did this port a favor. She's lucky I didn't call the cops. Paul O'Brien." Officer Ramirez was at the cafeteria door, out of breath. "Supervisor Perez needs you. Port Director Evans wants to see you. You're in big trouble." O'Brien's smile faded. The port director, Evans, never came down to the checkpoints. A cold knot of dread, the first one of the day, began to form in his stomach. "What? For what? That girl? Just come now." He slowly got to his feet, the half-eaten donut suddenly tasting like ash. Fine, what's the big deal? It's not like she's the damn Queen of England." The main conference room in the Horizon Cruise Line's corporate suite was a glass-walled box overlooking the waterway. It was designed to impress, with a massive mahogany table, leather chairs, and a stunning view of massive ships departing. Today it was a war room. Maya sat at the head of the table. She had her new company-issued secure phone. A very nervous, very professional embarkation agent named Chloe was sitting at a laptop nearby, acting as her temporary assistant. Her chief of staff, Ben Carter, had arrived and stood behind her, a grim expression on his face. Two of Horizon's top in-house lawyers were on speakerphone, listening intently. The door opened. David Miller, the operations manager, scurried in, followed by a woman in a sharp blue suit, Port Director Laura Evans. Evans had a practiced political smile plastered on her face, but her eyes were frantic. "Ms. Jordan," Evans began, her hand outstretched. "I am Laura Evans. On behalf of the Port Everglades Security Administration, I cannot begin to express my profound apologies for the lapse in judgment your officer displayed this morning." Maya did not stand. She did not shake her hand. She gestured to the chair opposite her. "Sit down, Director." Evans's smile faltered. She sat. "A lapse in judgment, Miss Evans? Is that what we're calling it?" Maya's voice was ice. "Your officer profiled me. He accused me of carrying a counterfeit document. He systematically humiliated me. And then he destroyed my federal property. That's not a lapse. That's a criminal act. And we are handling it, I assure you," Evans said quickly. "Officer O'Brien has been pulled from the line. He is facing a full investigation, and I assure you will be disciplined to the fullest extent." "Disciplined?" Maya repeated as if tasting the word. "You mean fired?" "Well, there are union processes, as I'm sure you understand." "I understand," Maya cut in, "that Horizon Cruise Lines is your largest partner in this terminal. I understand that our lease renewal is next year, and I understand that right now my legal team is drawing up a lawsuit against the Port Authority that will make your quarterly budget look like pocket change. So let's skip the processes speech." Evans swallowed. The air in the room was electric. "What do you want, Ms. Jordan?" Evans finally asked, dropping the political facade. "First," Maya said, "I want the CCTV footage from Checkpoint Bravo, Station 12, from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. My team has already requested it. I trust it's on its way." "My team is pulling it," Evans confirmed, though she knew it would be grainy and likely wouldn't have audio. "Second," Maya continued, "I want to see Officer O'Brien here in this room now." Evans was stunned. "Here? Ma'am, I'm not sure that's appropriate." "I'm not asking if it's appropriate. I am telling you what I require. I want to look the man who assaulted me in the eye." Maya leaned forward. "Or we can stop this meeting and my next call will be to the Secretary of Homeland Security." I believe I have her personal cell number from my time on the President's Tech Advisory Board. Your call. Evans's face went pale. Get him, she said to her deputy, who was waiting outside the door. Bring O'Brien here, and his supervisor. While they waited, the room filled with a suffocating silence. David Miller looked like he was about to be physically ill. Ben Carter was quietly taking notes. Maya simply stared out the window at her company's ships, her expression unreadable. The door opened again. Supervisor Perez entered, looking terrified. She was followed by Officer Paul O'Brien. O'Brien was no longer the strutting, arrogant tyrant of the checkpoint. His face was blotchy and slick with sweat. He'd clearly been told who he was about to meet. When he saw Maya, sitting at the head of the table, dressed in her elegant black dress, looking every bit the titan of industry she was, his knees visibly buckled. He looked from her to his boss, Port Director Evans, whose expression was murderous. Officer O'Brien, Maya said, her voice soft. It was more terrifying than if she had yelled. Ma'am, he whispered. His voice was hoarse. Please come closer. Stand at the end of the table. O'Brien shuffled forward, a condemned man walking the last mile. This morning, Maya said, you looked at me and you saw... What, exactly? A threat? A nobody? I was following procedure, he stammered, his eyes darting to Evans for help. He received none. The passport. It looked altered. The laminate was fine until you started bending it, officer, Maya said. But let's skip that part. Let's get to the part where you accused me of being aggressive. You were non-compliant, he tried, his voice cracking. Was I? Maya smiled, a cold, sharp expression. Director Evans, my team requested the CCTV footage, but I find video can be so unreliable without audio, don't you? Evans frowned, confused. What do you mean? Maya nodded to her chief of staff. Ben Carter picked up a small, sleek digital audio recorder from the table. Ms. Jordan makes it a habit to record all her interactions when she's doing ground-level research. Quality control, she calls it. O'Brien's eyes widened. He looked at the recorder as if it were a bomb. Ben pressed play. The entire horrifying exchange filled the silent, expensive boardroom. The audio was crystal clear, O'Brien's voice. This you? Maya's voice. Yes, it is. O'Brien's voice. Doesn't look like you. Business in that? O'Brien flinched as if struck. David Miller shut his eyes. Laura Evans stared at the recorder, her face ashen. The audio continued. Maya's voice. My attire is not your concern, officer. Is there a problem with my documentation? O'Brien's voice. There might be. This laminate's peeling. Common sign of a counterfeit. Maya's voice. Officer, you are damaging my passport. O'Brien's voice. I'm inspecting it. You people come in here with these fake IDs. Maya's voice. I know my rights. Get your supervisor. O'Brien's voice. Oh, you want to see a supervisor? Fine. And then the sound. The unmistakable sharp rip of the passport page tearing. It was followed by O'Brien's voice, full of smug triumph. Looks like it was fake after all. You're not sailing anywhere today. Ben pressed stop. The silence in the room was absolute. Paul O'Brien made a small, choking sound. Maya leaned back in her chair. She looked at Laura Evans. Director. Your officer. Your procedure. Your lapse in judgment. Evans slowly turned her head to O'Brien. The political smile was gone. Her face was a mask of cold, bureaucratic fury. She wasn't angry because he was a bigot. She was angry because he was a stupid bigot who got caught. Paul O'Brien, Evans said, her voice shaking with rage. You are a disgrace to your badge. You are a liability. He's a criminal, Maya finished for her. He didn't just break port security rules. He violated 18 U.S. Code Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. He used his government authority to deprive me of my rights, my property, and my freedom of movement based on my race and appearance. That carries a prison sentence. O'Brien began to weep. It was not a dignified, remorseful cry. It was the terrified, hiccuping sob of a bully who had just punched a hornet's nest. Please, ma'am, I have a family, a mortgage. I was having a bad day. A bad day? Maya stood up. and for the first time, her voice rose, crackling with a power that shook the room. A bad day? Do you know how many bad days people who look like me have to endure at the hands of men like you? You didn't just ruin my cruise. You tried to ruin my identity. You thought I was nobody. You thought I was garbage you could just throw away. You looked at me and you thought, I can get away with this. She walked around the table until she was standing right in front of him. He flinched. You are fired, Mr. O'Brien. That's the first thing. You will not be suspended. You will not be retrained. You will be terminated. Effective immediately. Yes, ma'am, Evans said, nodding quickly. Consider it done. No, Maya said, holding up a hand. You don't get to fire him. He's a federal employee. You get to start the proceedings, but I am not stopping there. She turned back to O'Brien. My legal team, the ones on that speakerphone, will be handing this audio recording along with a formal complaint to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida. I am not just having you fired. I'm having you prosecuted. You wanted to teach me a lesson. Now I'm going to teach you one. Actions have consequences. Real, life-altering, hard karma consequences. O'Brien finally collapsed into a chair, burying his head in his hands, his body shaking with sobs. My life is over. My life is over. Your life isn't over, Maya said, stepping back. You just have to build a new one. One where you don't have a badge to hide behind. She looked at Supervisor Perez and Port Director Evans. Get him out of my boardroom. 2 Port Authority officers, called by Evans's deputy, entered the room. They gently but firmly lifted Paul O'Brien by his elbows. I need his badge and his credentials. Now, Evans ordered, her voice sharp. Still sobbing, O'Brien fumbled with the clip on his belt. He handed his badge and his government ID to Supervisor Perez, who took them as if they were contaminated. Please, he whispered one last time, looking at Maya. Please, I'm begging you. Maya just stared at him, her expression as unyielding as the granite foundation of the building. She had seen men like him before. Men who were lions when they had power and whimpering cowards when they faced consequences. She felt nothing for him. No pity, no sympathy, only the cold satisfaction of justice. The officers led him out of the room. The door clicked shut, leaving an echoing, heavy silence. Supervisor Perez was visibly shaking, tears in her eyes. Ms. Jordan, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. He's always been a hard case, but I never... Maya's demeanor softened, but only slightly. You're his supervisor, Ms. Perez. Your job is to know. You let a predator work your checkpoint. You failed. But she held up a hand as Perez began to apologize again. But you also didn't commit the act. You're a witness. You can either be a witness for him or a witness for me. I suggest you make the right choice when the U.S. attorney calls you. Perez nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, ma'am. Of course, anything. You can go, Maya said. Perez fled the room. Now only Laura Evans and David Miller remained. The 2 executives, the 2 people who were supposed to be in charge. Maya sat back down. Well, that was unpleasant. Port Director Laura Evans looked exhausted. She had just seen one of her own officers arrested, effectively, and she knew the political shrapnel from this was going to hit her desk for months. Ms. Jordan, Evans said. Again, my apologies. We will, of course, work with the State Department's passport office to have your document replaced immediately. We have an on-site liaison. We can have a new valid passport in your hands within 2 hours. Thank you, Maya said. I will need that. But don't for 1 second think this is over. We're not done. Evans frowned. I'm not sure I follow. The officer has been terminated. He's being prosecuted. We're replacing your document. That's reactive, Maya said, steepling her fingers. You fixed my problem. You haven't fixed the problem. The problem is Officer O'Brien, yes, but the system is what enabled him. He felt comfortable doing that. He bragged about it. He thought he had your and his supervisor's tacit approval to profile and harass passengers. She slid her laptop across the table, turned so Evans could see it. I've been busy for the last hour, Director. This is the public complaint database for the Port Everglades Security Division. Officer Paul O'Brien has 38 complaints filed against him in the last 2 years. 38. 29 of those are from people of color. 12 specifically mention aggressive behavior and profiling. He's not a bad apple. He's a rotten core, and your system let him fester. Evans stared at the screen. She had, of course, known O'Brien was a problem, but the data laid out like that was damning. I want a full audit, Maya demanded, of all your officers at this port. I want an independent, third-party review of every single profiling complaint from the last 3 years. And Horizon Cruise Lines is going to pay for it, so you can't claim you don't have the budget. An independent audit, Evans whispered. That was a bureaucratic nightmare. And, Maya continued, Horizon will also be funding and requiring a new mandatory quarterly implicit bias and de-escalation training program for your entire Port Everglades staff. Not the 1-hour PowerPoint you currently use, a real one, taught by experts in racial bias and psychology. My team will select the firm. This was an unprecedented overreach of a private company into a federal agency's operations. But Maya had her. She knew it. The threat of the lawsuit, the call to the secretary, the sheer horrifying optics of the audio recording. Evans was trapped. We can discuss the logistics of that, Evans said weakly. It was a surrender. Good. My chief of staff, Ben, will be in touch to discuss it. You should consider this a new binding term of our partnership at this port. Evans, defeated, nodded. Understood. If you'll excuse me, I need to go and manage this. She stood up, her suit jacket suddenly looking too big for her, and left the room. Now Maya was alone with David Miller. He had been silent for the entire meeting, a ghost in the corner. Maya turned her chair to face him. He looked like he was about to faint. David, she said, her voice now calm, almost conversational. Ms. Jordan, Do you know what my biggest problem is today, David? It's not O'Brien. He's just a racist bully. It's not Evans. She's just a bureaucrat. She stood up and walked to the glass, looking down at the Horizon baggage handlers loading a ship. My biggest problem is you. Miller's head snapped up. Ma'am? I was stranded landside, humiliated, a passenger of your cruise line in your terminal. And where were you? Where was my team? Did a single Horizon embarkation agent, a single red coat customer service rep step in to help? Did anyone see the confrontation and say, that is our passenger? Let's see if we can help? Ma'am, we usually don't interfere with port security. Don't give me that excuse, Maya said, turning. You didn't know I was your CEO. You just saw a passenger. And your entire team, your entire system, is designed to ignore that. You're so busy managing provisioning trucks and baggage belts that you've forgotten what we're selling. We're not selling staterooms. We're selling service. We're selling transport. And when a customer is deprived of that, your job is to step in. She pointed to the phone. The only reason you came to get me is because my chief of staff called you from a corporate office. You didn't come to help a passenger. You came to save your job. That is a systemic failure. Your failure. Miller had no response. He knew she was right. I'm not sailing to the Caribbean today, Maya said. I'm staying here for a week. I'm going to be in your break rooms, at your gates, and in your baggage claim. My review of this cruise line didn't start in the boardroom. It started in the security line. And David, you are starting with a very, very low score. Miller nodded, his face pale. Yes, ma'am. I understand. I will work to fix it. You'd better, Maya said. Now send in Chloe. I need to rebook my sailing. And David? Yes, ma'am. Get me a coffee, Black. And find my luggage. The news of the incident at Checkpoint Bravo spread through the executive levels of Port Everglades with the speed of a wildfire. Within 3 hours, every cruise line manager, every Port Authority executive, and every high-level security official knew that an agent had been frog-marched out of the terminal for assaulting the new CEO of Horizon Cruise Lines. Paul O'Brien's hard karma was only just beginning. He was processed not by his friends, but by Port Authority police, who were taking their cues from a furious Port Director Evans. He was charged by the PA police with destruction of property, but that was just the appetizer. By 4 p.m. that day, the U.S. Attorney's Office had received the audio file and a sworn affidavit from Maya Jordan. The case was assigned to an ambitious assistant U.S. attorney who saw a high-profile slam-dunk civil rights case. By the next morning, a federal warrant was issued. Paul O'Brien was at home trying to explain to his wife why his pay had been stopped when 2 FBI agents knocked on his door. They arrested him for 18 U.S. Code Section 242. The charge was no longer a theory in a boardroom. It was a reality on a rap sheet. His case was fast-tracked. The audio recording was undeniable. His own colleague, Officer Ramirez, testified against him, stating she had seen him deliberately bend and then rip the passport in an act of malice. He pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. The judge, A no-nonsense woman who had heard too many bad day excuses sentenced him to 18 months in a federal minimum security prison. He lost his job, his pension, and his right to ever carry a firearm again. His life as he knew it was indeed over. He had torn up a 2-inch photo, and in return, his entire life was torn apart. But Maya's war was not just against one man. It was against the system that made him. Her week at Port Everglades became a legend. She did exactly as she'd promised. She appeared at 3 a.m. in the baggage claim, helping a frantic mother find a lost stroller. She sat in the crew lounge, listening to stewards complain about scheduling software. She worked a shift at the embarkation gate, checking in passengers for a delayed sailing to Orlando, and was appalled at the abuse her own agents took from passengers. She also brought her full, terrifying logistical genius brain to bear on the port's operations. She sat down with David Miller, who was now effectively on probation, and completely redesigned the passenger flow for Horizon's check-in. She allocated funds for new automated bag drop machines to cut down lines. Then she turned her attention back to port security. The independent audit she had demanded began within the month. It was, as Evans had feared, a bloodbath. It uncovered dozens of Paul O'Briens, agents with long-standing, verifiable patterns of harassment and bias. The audit led to the firing of 4 more agents and the forced retirement or reassignment of 2 supervisors, including Supervisor Perez, who was found to have systematically ignored complaints against her team. Port Director Laura Evans was promoted to a desk job in Washington, D.C., a classic bureaucratic execution. The new port director at Port Everglades was a reformer chosen with Maya's input, who understood that his primary job was now customer service and civil rights, not just security theater. The Jordan Carter Training Initiative, as the new bias program was eventually named, became the gold standard for all security agents at Port Everglades, and Horizon Cruise Lines made it clear that they expected all port staff they worked with, from contractors to Port Authority police, to undergo similar training. Maya had, in 1 week, forced a fundamental change in the culture of an entire port. Months later, Maya Jordan stood in the same spot in Terminal C. The checkpoint was different. It was brighter. The lines were shorter thanks to her new logistical flow. The agents seemed more professional, less militant. Her new passport, which Ben had insisted on, was in her hand. She was sailing to the Caribbean again. She was still wearing a simple, comfortable travel outfit, though this time it was a tailored linen suit. She was not in disguise. Everyone knew exactly who she was. She stepped up to the podium. A new young agent looked at her, smiled, and said, "Good morning, Ms. Jordan. Sailing to the Caribbean today?" "I am," Maya said, smiling back. "Great. Can I see your passport and boarding card, please?" He scanned it. "Everything looks perfect. Have a wonderful cruise." It was simple, professional, respectful. It was normal. She collected her bags and walked toward the Horizon Cruise Line suite lounge. David Miller, pale, thinner, but still employed, met her at the entrance. He had, to Maya's surprise, taken her criticisms to heart and was genuinely trying to reform his station. "Ms. Jordan, welcome. Your ship is on time. The crew is ready. We have your preferred tea waiting for you." "Thank you, David," she said. "How are the passenger complaint numbers this quarter?" "Down," he said with a flicker of real pride. "Down 40%. And our on-time departure rate is up 12% since we automated the bag drops." "Good," Maya said. "That's a start." She boarded her ship. As she settled into her penthouse suite, she looked out the window. She saw the concrete, the ships, the scurrying workers. She had come to this port as a customer and been treated like a criminal. She was leaving it as its unofficial queen. She had faced down prejudice and power, and she had won. Not just for herself, but for the millions of passengers who just wanted to be treated with dignity. The hoodie was gone, but the memory remained. It was a reminder that you can never judge a person by their appearance, because you never know if you're trying to destroy a student or the one person who has the power to destroy you right back. A year had passed. The ballroom at the Washington, D.C. Grand Hyatt was silent, save for one voice. Every CEO of every major American cruise line was in the audience, alongside the Secretary of Homeland Security, the new head of port security, and dozens of senators and representatives. On stage, delivering the keynote address for the National Maritime and Transport Summit, was Maya Jordan, and so we must accept a simple, unavoidable truth, Maya said, her voice calm and projecting through the vast room. We are not in the business of logistics. We are not in the business of security. We are in the business of people. Our systems, our checkpoints, our gates, they are not barriers. They are the first handshake, the first welcome, and for too long, that handshake has felt like a fist. She paced the stage. No podium, no notes. She owned the room. When we give an individual a badge, we are not granting them power. We are entrusting them with a profound responsibility. The power to protect, yes, but also the power to humiliate. The power to respect or the power to profile. For a decade, our industry has focused only on the what. What is in the bag? What is in the pocket? We forgot to train for the how. How do we speak to a nervous traveler? How do we de-escalate, not antagonize? How do we treat every single person, regardless of what they wear or where they come from, with baseline human dignity? In the front row, the new port director from Port Everglades, a reformer named Kevin Lee, took notes. In the back of the room, Laura Evans, now in a diminished consulting role, stared at her lap. The Port Everglades initiative, which we funded and implemented, Maya continued, has seen a 60% drop in formal passenger complaints and, interestingly, a 30% rise in agent-reported job satisfaction. Because it turns out, when you train people to be ambassadors instead of antagonists, everyone has a better day. She paused, and the silence in the room was absolute. We have all heard the stories, she concluded. We have all seen the videos. We know the cost of failure. Today, I am proud to announce that Horizon Cruise Lines is partnering with two of our largest competitors. She nodded to the CEOs of Majestic Cruises and Regal, Seas, to fund the creation of a national passenger bill of rights, ensuring that the standards of respect and training we developed at Port Everglades become the law of the land, not just the policy of one terminal. The room exploded into a standing ovation. As Maya walked off stage, the Secretary of Homeland Security grabbed her hand. "Ms. Jordan," he said, "you have changed the conversation for this entire country. You turned a violation into a revolution." Maya just nodded. "The work continues, Mr. Secretary," she thought, for a fleeting second, of Paul O'Brien, a name she hadn't heard in months. He was, she knew, in a federal work release program. His life as an authority figure permanently deleted. His hard karma had been the catalyst. But this room, this national change, this was her victory. Thank you for listening to this story. What happened to Officer O'Brien is what we call hard karma, when the consequences perfectly fit the crime. He used his power to rip up a woman's identity, and in return, his own identity as an officer, a provider, and a free man was ripped up by the very system he thought he controlled. This story is a powerful reminder that prejudice and arrogance have a price. You never ever know who you are talking to. That person you underestimate, that person you decide to bully, might just be the one person holding the keys to your entire future. A moment of spite can lead to a lifetime of regret. What did you think of O'Brien's karma? Was it too much, or was it exactly what he deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories where arrogance is met with devastating consequences, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more true life drama. We have new stories coming out every week, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Thanks for watching.